When it comes to politics, nothing motivates voters more than fear, and the Republican Party has mastered the art of making people afraid. But fear is only half of the equation. Once they make voters scared, they have to be able to convince them that they're the only candidate capable of keeping them safe. All the voter has to do is put their blind faith into that Republican candidate. This is how Republicans manipulate voters, and I have Howard Nations with me now to tell us how Donald Trump is using this technique to fuel his surge. Howard, I think Donald Trump's surge in general within the Republican Party and among voters, we've analyzed it from a lot of different perspectives, but one of them that we haven't really looked at is the psychological factor of the Republican conservative voters. And John Dean recently came out with a very great article where he kind of looked at this and tried to figure out on a deeper level why Republicans are flocking to a guy as crazy as Donald Trump. So tell us a little bit about what he's concluded here.
Okay, first we have to consider the source. John Dean was White House counsel under Nixon, and he resigned along with all during the Watergate scandal. He resigned as part of the Watergate scandal. Since that time, John Dean has been the bane of the existence of the Republican Party. He wrote books called Conservative Without Conscience in '06. He wrote Worse Than Watergate, The Secret Presidency of George W. Bush. So he's been going after Republicans ever since Watergate. Now he raises an issue, though, about Trump, which is very interesting. He looks at all the people that are running for president right now. Amazingly, at the Federal Election Commission, 500 people have registered to run for president. Of course, many of them are running for their own talk show on Fox, or running to increase their speaking fees at right-wing organizations. But Trump is clearly the leader in every poll. So what John Dean has done is he's viewing this along with a political scientist named Larry Sabato from the University of Virginia as trying to determine what is the true role that Trump is playing. Sabato has the GOP contenders set up in 5 tiers. The first tier in alphabetical order is Bush, Rubio, and Walker. He has Trump in the 5th tier. Sabato labels Trump as a gadfly. And if you haven't been around stables or around the farm, a gadfly is a fly that annoys the horses and the cattle. Socially, it's a person who upsets the status quo, provokes others into action with criticism. Trump is certainly that. But why is he resonating so well? And John Dean looks at this through the prism of authoritarianism. He says that Trump is a leading authoritarian, and he's the most aggressive authoritarian on the scene, and that his followers are classic political authoritarian followers. And they've divided the authoritarian groups into leaders and followers. And John Dean came up with this analysis actually back in 2006, and along with Professor Bob Altemeyer, who did a lot of social science research on this, he put online an article called The Authoritarian, which has been viewed by 500,000 people now, where they analyze leaders and followers. And that's what he says Trump's appeal is, that he's just the biggest authoritarian out there, and that this is an authoritarian group that he's appealing to.
Well, and that's, it makes a little bit of sense when you consider how Trump speaks when he goes out on the stump speeches, or when he has these rallies, I guess. He is very clear about his intentions. He does not make any apologies for his positions on anything, even when they're completely backwards from what the public wants or needs. But it's that command of the issue, that I guess you'd call it the straight talk, as John McCain wanted to, co-opt that term. But it really does speak to people who they crave somebody who will tell them what they believe is the truth. Not that it's, it has any basis in reality, but it's what they believe is their truth, and who doesn't mince words, and he doesn't waver one way or another. And they see that as a strong leader, somebody to guide them, because that's what they need. They're not looking at the best needs of the country. they're looking for that authoritarian who will tell them where to go. Is that what we're seeing here?
It is, and what they've done in terms of social science is they've looked at these followers and they've analyzed authoritarian followers. They say that they're harsh on them, very harsh on them. They say they're very religious, they're moderate, they have moderate to little education, they're very trusting of untrustworthy authoritarians, they're prejudiced, they're mean-spirited. I mean, they really go after them in a hard way. They're severely punishing, and they're typically politically and economically conservative Republicans. And they identify Trump's followers, who self-identify largely as Tea Party Republicans, as having those same characteristics and traits, that they're a very special breed of right-wing conservatives. But the way they characterize authoritarian leaders in the social science just is what Dean uses. He thinks really nails Trump on this, that they're typically mean, that they always have 4 traits. They're dominating, they oppose equality, they desire personal power, and they're amoral. It sounds like Trump. They've identified several people as fitting into this pattern, but what the authoritarians do, and see if this sounds like Trump. Characteristically, they're intimidating and bullying, they're vengeful, they're pitiless, they're manipulative, they're highly prejudicial, they're mean-spirited, they specialize in false images to sell themselves, and they're usually political and economic conservative Republicans. That's what they characterize as authoritarians, and Dean says that is classic Donald Trump.
It absolutely is. And when you think about it, too, to an extent, this was also George W. Bush with Dick Cheney. Cheney had that commanding, bullying presence. And while Bush may not have been a bully, in the sense of Dick Cheney or even Chris Christie, we would see at press conferences, he would talk down to people. He would be very snarky with them if he didn't agree with them. And that is the same type of personality. The conservatives ate that up. Like, oh, he just put that person in their place, and then he made his little comment and did his little on the podium.
Right, exactly.
But Donald Trump does it a little bit more in a grown-up way, because I think Bush did it unintentionally, but Trump knows exactly what he is doing with this. I mean, for all of his horrible policies, he's not stupid. He understands how to manipulate people. I mean, that's how he's had, some business success. He knows how to manipulate people. He knows how to get his way, and he knows how to bully without getting the label of bully like Chris Christie has. So, I mean, how is this going to continue to work for him, when he still has, 15 months before we're out from an election here? Well, can he ride this wave?
Look at where he comes from. Look at his base. He has a public personality in which he was always in charge. He was the decider, as Bush would say. He understands the media. He can't be embarrassed into falling into line. He makes his own rules. Others are following him now. Scott Walker is ready to toss out the Constitution now on the birthright issue because Trump said so. So Walker fell in line. Trump bullies everyone. He bullies his opponents, the media, anyone who opposes him, and he absolutely loves playing the role of loose cannon. Now, how's this going to play in the future? In Iowa, I'm not sure how well it'll play at the caucuses with the evangelicals. We'll have to wait and see on that. Iowa, it shouldn't be first anyway. People like Rick Perry, Michelle Bachmann, Herman Cain have led Iowa. Santorum won it last time. It's meaningless. It's a joke. There's a saying in politics that Iowa picks corn and New Hampshire picks presidents. If he wins New Hampshire and he wins South Carolina, he's going to be hard to stop, because think about this. Wall Street is with him, and Wall Street can be with him 100% without putting up one penny. All they have to do is withhold their donations from anybody else. Now, Dean says that he sees no route for Trump to get to the White House, but I'll tell you this, Trump may very well decide who does go to the White House. He may be outcome determinative in this election. If we look back at history, in the 1912 election, The incumbent Republican president was William Howard Taft. There was an authoritarian from New York by the name of Teddy Roosevelt who ran against him for the Republican nomination. He lost. And so then Roosevelt ran as a third party. He formed his own party, the Bull Moose Party, as a progressive. In the election, he split the vote. Roosevelt got 25% of the vote. The incumbent United States president, William Howard Taft, only got 23% of the vote, and they elected the Democrat, Woodrow Wilson, as president of the United States. And so, those who ignore mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. And the Republicans may give that a lot of thought when they're trying to figure out exactly what to do with Donald Trump.
I could absolutely see something like that happening, and then after losing it to the Democrats, you would have third-party Trump say, look, if you would have just supported me, we would have the White House. I was right. You were wrong, because that's exactly his personality. Howard, we're out of time, but thank you very much for telling us this story. This is a fantastic issue, a fantastic theory by John Dean, and we appreciate you talking with us today.
My pleasure, Farron. Thanks.